Welcome to the New York State Board of Elections Test Deck Procedure Training Project. To become certified within New York State, a voting system needs to pass all of the laws and regulations set forth by the state, beginning with a hash check, also referred to as the software verification test. The purpose of a hash check is to compare the software and firmware, which is software installed on a voting system, against the certified software and firmware approved by the Board of Elections. If the values between the two don't match, the voting system fails the pre-qualification test. If they do generate equal values, it confirms that the system in use is identical to the one approved by the Board of Elections after a series of rigorous certification testing. Once a voting system passes this first pre-qualification test, a number of specified subdecks are created and verified. Together, these subdecks make up the test deck procedure. Each subdeck has a specified purpose in verifying the logic and accuracy of a voting system. And there is therefore a mandatory requirement for pre-qualification testing in all elections. This online training has been designed to provide County Board of Elections with detailed instructions on how to prepare test decks. Let's begin with a brief overview of test deck theory. Test decks are designed to test the logic and accuracy of the voting system software to ensure that the tested results match a predetermined set of expected results. To accomplish this, a test deck will typically include one or more of the following: ballots that have been improperly voted on, ballots which have been voted on in excess of the number allowed by law, as well as ballots which demonstrate that no votes have been cast at all. Running these ballots will test the ability of a system to recognize and/or notify in the event of an under or over vote. Each county board is responsible for preparing a test deck to verify the following: election configuration. This is the information used to program the polling place and central count voting systems. BMD scanner ballot configuration. The layout or positioning on and/or the linkage within the ballot of all political party names, contests, and candidates. Logic and accuracy of BMD, marked ballot. This term defines the testing of the ballot marking device in order to produce a marked ballot which verifies that the optical scanner is accurately reading the ballots produced by the BMD. Determined number of valid votes for each candidate, each write-in position, and each voting option on every proposal that appears on the ballot as certified by the county board. Once the election configuration has been completed, the next step is determining the number of subdecks needed. This training will cover the following subdecks: election verification, pattern vote, cross endorsement, BMD random, 5 blank ballots, BMD print validation ballot, and finally, standard. The number of subdecks will vary slightly depending on whether your county is conducting a general election or a primary election. Please note that primary test decks do not include the cross-endorsement subdeck. Keep in mind that although we'll be using landscape-style ballots for this training, the steps covered over the course of this training will work for portrait-style ballots as well. In an effort to assist County Board of Elections in determining the number of test deck ballots required to create a comprehensive test deck, the New York State Board of Elections have developed a general election ballot calculator. This tool is available for download on the State Board of Elections FTP site at the address shown on your screen. The calculator uses the following ballot properties to determine the number of test deck ballots you'll need to create your subdeck. These properties include the number of rows displayed on the ballot, the number of contests displayed on the ballot, and the number of propositions displayed on the ballot. We'll be using this calculating tool throughout the online training and encourage you to use it as we step through each subdeck.
The first subdeck created in the testing process is known as the Election Verification Vote subdeck. It's designed to test every position on the ballot in order to confirm that votes cast are in fact being recognized by the optical scanner and marked by the ballot marking device. The number of ballots required for an election verification subdeck is equal to the number of total rows on the ballot. In this example, that number is 7. Once you've determined the number of ballots required for this subdeck, the next step is testing the ballot configuration itself by entering 7 test ballots, one at a time, into an optical scanner. Begin by taking ballot number 1 and moving to the first row, marking each ballot's selection in that row as you go. If you find any propositions on the ballot, mark yes for each one displayed. Next, using ballot number 2, mark each ballot's selection in the second row. If any propositions appear on the ballot, mark no for each one that exists. Continue with a new ballot for each preceding row and mark each ballot's selection in the row until all 7 rows have been completed. Please note that row number 7 on this ballot has been set aside for write-ins. This ensures that voters can cast votes for a person whose name does not appear on the official ballot. Once all the ballots have been marked, tally the votes from each ballot to complete the election verification subdeck test. The second subdeck, created for both a general and primary election, is called a pattern vote. In a general election, a pattern vote test deck is designed to validate the ability of a voter to select any candidate for any office, not to exceed the number allowed for that office, often referred to as a vote for. It also gives a voter the ability to select any proposition on the ballot as well. Keep in mind that this test does not include write-ins. Pattern test deck ballots provide results which are unique to each candidate in the contest. Keep in mind that each vote for one race on all ballot styles will generate the following results: 1 vote for the first candidate, 2 votes for the second candidate, 3 votes for the third candidate, 4 votes for the fourth candidate, and so on. To calculate the number of ballots needed for a pattern vote subdeck, begin by looking across each row on your ballot and find the contest in that row with the largest number of candidates. Next, using the ballot calculator, enter that number next to the corresponding row in the OS Pattern Vote subdeck tally grid. In this example, there are a total of 7 rows. So continue this process from one row to the next until you reach the write-in row. Once all the numbers are entered onto the tally grid, we can see that 84 ballots will be needed for this test. After calculating the number of ballots required for the pattern vote subdeck, the next step is testing the ballot configuration itself by calculating the allowable vote for within each contest. To begin the process, take an individual ballot style. Next, starting with ballot number 1, move to row number 1 and mark 1 vote for the first candidate in each of the Vote for One contests in that row. If any contests on ballot number 1 require a vote for more than 1, start with the first candidate in the multiple Vote For contest and vote the appropriate number to be elected. If propositions are included, mark yes for each one displayed on the ballot. Next, move to ballot number 2, and starting with the second candidate in the same row, mark 1 vote per candidate for the appropriate number to be elected. On ballot number 3, move to the third candidate in row number 1, and mark 1 vote per candidate for the appropriate number to be elected. If propositions are included, mark no for each one present. Continue this voting pattern for ballots number 4 through 6 until all the candidates within a contest have initiated a voting pattern for their row. Please note that each candidate in a multiple Vote For contest will initiate a voting pattern that may cause the votes to be marked on additional rows within the contest. For instance, here's an example of a completed pattern vote for a Vote For Any 6 contest with a ballot configuration of 3 rows with 6 candidates per row. On ballot number 1, row 1, candidates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are voted. Ballot number 2, row 1, candidates 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are voted. Row 2, candidate 1 is voted. Ballot number 3, row 1, candidates 3, 4, 5, 6 are voted. Row 2, candidates 1, 2 are voted. Ballot number 4, row 1, candidates 4, 5, 6 are voted. Row 2, candidates 1, 2, 3 are voted. Ballot number 5, row 1, candidates 5, 6 are voted. Row 2, candidates 1, 2, 3, 4 are voted. Ballot number 6, row 1, candidate 6 is voted. Row 2, candidates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are voted. Next, move on to row number 2, keeping in mind that each voting pattern beginning in row 2 will be repeated twice before the next candidate starts their pattern. So what would a pattern vote for row number 2 look like? Let's continue our ballot count using a vote for any 6 contest as an example. On our 7th ballot, candidates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are voted. Ballot number 8, a repeat of ballot number 7. Ballot number 9, in row 2, candidates 2 through 6 are voted. Row 3, candidate 1 is voted. Ballot number 10, same as ballot number 9. Ballot number 11, in row 2, candidates 3 through 6 are voted. Row number 3, candidates 1, 2 are voted. Ballot number 12, a repeat of number 11. This pattern continues through all the rows of each ballot style until the last candidate in the last row or column of every contest has been voted. Cross-endorsement subdecks are created specifically for general elections and are designed to ensure that a voter's vote for a candidate is not counted more than once in situations where a candidate appears on more than one political party line for the same contest. The cross-endorsement test checks several combinations associated with candidates appearing on multiple party lines and compares these occurrences against one another. The first step in creating this subdeck is to carefully view each contest on the ballot and determine if a candidate appears on one or more political party lines for the same contest. Next, starting with the first cross-endorsed candidate in every contest, vote for both the first line and second line where the cross-endorsed candidates appear, making sure not to exceed the allowable number for the contest. Continue to vote all remaining cross-endorsed candidates who are the first line in their column with their second line in every contest. If you find any contests where a candidate has multiple cross-endorsements, meaning 3 or more, or identify a contest where more than one candidate is cross-endorsed, vote a separate ballot until all combinations with the first line have been exhausted. Repeat this process for all the remaining lines of the candidate until there are no more combinations. Again, making sure to vote a separate ballot for each line until every possible combination has been entered. Once all the ballots have been marked, tally the votes from each ballot to calculate the number of ballots needed. A random vote subdeck is created in order to demonstrate that any random voting patterns made are recognized and marked as valid votes by the ballot marking device. 3 BMD marked ballots are required for this subdeck. These test ballots will verify audio, touchscreen, push button, or other electronic mechanisms, keypad and/or pneumatic switch for voters with disabilities, alternate language displays, overvotes, undervotes, cross endorsements. A print validation subdeck is created as part of a comprehensive primary and general election test deck. This test verifies that the scanner recognizes any time a contest is overvoted. It also confirms a scanner's ability to read the marked ovals on a ballot marking device. This test can be run on either an AutoMark or ImageCast ballot marking device. To use the AutoMark ballot marking device, select Test Ballot Print in test mode. This will generate a fully marked ballot. Next, scan this fully marked ballot in the voting machine. If everything is working properly, all contests will be reported as overvoted on the results tape. Keep in mind that the inclusion of this ballot will serve as the overvote test. If you're using the ImageCast, start by hand marking a ballot, making sure to choose every oval position available, and then scan the ballot. The inclusion of this ballot generated by the ImageCast will also serve as the overvote test. Like the print validation test, a blank ballot subdeck is also created as part of a comprehensive primary or general election test deck. A blank ballot test uses 5 ballots to verify the optical scanner recognizes the timing marks, establishes that the optical scanner displays the proper message to the voter, certifies the vote tallies are not incremented in such circumstance, and confirms that no stray marks are recognized by the voting system as actual votes. For each ballot configuration, ballot style, programmed with more than one election district, a standard test deck must be created and run on every additional voting system using that definition. The pre-qualification primary and general election standard test deck is designed to ensure that the ballot definition was coded correctly in the EMS, printed ballots from the print vendor can be read by the optical scanner and ballot marking device, logic and accuracy remain intact, that all ADA devices are functioning, and expected vote tallies equal tally results on the printed tapes. A standard test deck uses 3 ballots. Ballot number 1 is a blank ballot. It verifies the optical scanner recognizes the timing marks, establishes that the optical scanner displays the proper message to the voter, keeping in mind that a blank ballot is an undervoted ballot, certifies that the vote tallies are not incremented in such circumstance, and confirms that no stray marks are recognized by the voting system as votes. Ballot number 2, a hand-marked ballot, is used to cast a vote for every scenario that exists on the ballot. These include overvote, undervote, write-in, cross-endorsement, and proposition. And finally, ballot number 3 is a voted ballot using a ballot marking device. This test verifies audio, touchscreen, push button, or other electronic mechanisms, keypad and/or pneumatic switch for voters with disabilities, alternate language displays, overvotes, undervotes, and cross-endorsements.
This concludes the New York State Board of Elections Test Deck Procedure Training Project. Test decks are an essential ingredient in continuing the legacy of integrity in the voting system, not only in New York State, but across the entire nation. If you have any questions or suggestions regarding this training, you can contact us at the address on your screen.